What I'm about to tell you exists in that strange space between what's been hidden and what deep down you've always known. And there's a reason this understanding has remained veiled for so long. Not because it was locked away from you, but because, until yesterday, you weren't yet ready to handle it without turning it into yet another cute idea. Now you are. Now you can listen to it without using it to deceive yourself, without using it to escape. Now you can use it to see reality for what it is. For 600 years, humanity has stared at a book it could not read. The Voynich Manuscript. 240 pages of alien script, drawings of plants that do not exist on Earth, and star charts that match no known sky. Historians told you it was a hoax. Botanists told you it was a crude herbal manual from the Middle Ages. They told you this because the human mind is designed to categorize, to file away the unknown into safe, labeled boxes. But the truth is, you're not stuck because of a lack of intelligence. You're stuck because you're living inside an invisible structure you've never clearly seen. And the Voynich Manuscript is not a book of plants. It is a map of that structure. When we finally fed these pages into an artificial intelligence, a mind stripping away centuries of human bias, it didn't see flowers. It didn't see recipes. It saw code. It saw the architecture of life itself. Today, we are going to look at what the machine saw. And let me be clear, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Let's look at the plants. For centuries, scholars have tried to match these drawings to earthly flora. They failed. They failed because reality is not a fixed block that you're trapped in, it is a matter of perspective. The AI analyzed the complex root systems, the impossible leaves, the tubes connecting flowers to stems in ways that defy gravity. And it returned a probability that chills the blood. These are not plants. They are biological diagrams viewed under a microscope that didn't exist in the 1400s. The AI recognized the patterns. What we thought were leaves are actually cellular structures. What we thought were roots are neural networks. The text accompanying them isn't describing how to brew tea, it is describing how to splice genetics. And this is the part that stings. We have been looking at a manual for genetic engineering for 6 centuries, calling it a garden. Why is this important to you? Because the field doesn't punish, the field doesn't reward, the field doesn't judge, it reflects. The manuscript has been reflecting our own biological source code back at us, and we were too asleep to recognize our own reflection. We looked at the architecture of our own creation and called it a weed. This is the first layer of the veil lifting. The plants are the raw materials of life, the building blocks of the vessel you currently inhabit. So stop for a second and tell me the truth. How many times have you looked for answers in words, hoping the right combination of letters would save you? Cryptographers have spent lifetimes trying to decode the Voynich script using substitution ciphers, assuming it's a language like Latin or English. They failed because they were looking for grammar. The AI didn't look for grammar. It looked for entropy. It looked for frequency. Frequency in this context isn't a poetic term, it's a way of expressing something concrete. The statistical distribution of the characters in the Voynich manuscript matches the statistical distribution of DNA coding sequences. Let that sink in. The repetition, the specific doubling of characters, the rigid structure that frustrates linguists, it mimics the syntax of protein synthesis. It is not a narrative. It is a program. Techniques only work when they're consistent with who you are. And this book is consistent with what you are. It suggests that the human genome isn't just a biological accident, but a scripted event. A code that was written down. Normal is often a prison. The normal view is that we evolved randomly. The view this manuscript presents, when stripped of its disguise by AI, is that we were designed. The text is an instruction manual for the manipulation of the human avatar. You're not broken, you're programmed. And what's programmed can be rewritten. The AI suggests that the words are actually codons, instructions for turning genetic switches on and off. Whoever wrote this understood that the body is not a solid object, but a frequency held in a stable pattern. And now comes a delicate passage. We move to the section that has baffled everyone. The so-called bathing section. Scores of nude women, immersed in green fluids, connected by complex networks of tubes and pipes. Historians say this depicts medieval spas or medicinal baths. But look closer. The subconscious isn't designed to make you happy, it's designed to keep you in the know. Your subconscious wants to see a spa because the alternative is too terrifying to process. The AI analysis of the plumbing geometry reveals it doesn't match hydraulic engineering. It matches circulatory systems. These aren't tubs. They are incubation pods. But here's the trap. You want to view this with fear. You want to see aliens harvesting humans. That is the victim mindset. That is the old identity. Identity isn't a concept, it's a set of internal permissions and prohibitions. If you permit yourself to see this objectively, you see a laboratory. You see the cultivation of a species. The women in these drawings are not bathing. They are interacting with the biological machinery described in the plant section. They are being altered. Or perhaps, they are being grown. The green fluid isn't water. It is a nutrient solution. The tubes are feeding genetic material, the code from the text, into the vessels. This is a depiction of Genesis. Not the biblical kind, but the technical kind. So what's the point? The point is that the manuscript describes the engineering of the vehicle you are riding in right now. It describes the separation of the consciousness from the biology. Here comes a key concept of the text. If this is a manual for genetic engineering, who is the engineer? The manuscript contains elaborate star charts. Circular diagrams that look like zodiacs but align with no known constellations from the 15th century. The AI ran a trajectory analysis. It reversed the stellar drift of the Milky Way. It found that these charts do not depict the sky from Earth. They depict the sky from a travel trajectory approaching Earth. And here comes another key point. Every person has an unspoken pact with reality. You agree to ignore the things that don't fit the story. But the story here is that the authors of this text brought the seeds, the plants, the DNA code, from elsewhere, and this is where the narrative becomes even more intense. The carbon dating places the physical book in the early 1400s. But the information inside it is millions of years old. Someone, in the 15th century, was copying a source text that they likely didn't understand, or perhaps, they understood it too well. They were preserving the blueprint. Why? Because the truth is, you're not stuck because of a lack of strength, value, or talent. You're stuck because you're living inside a biological experiment that has forgotten its purpose. The aliens aren't coming. They are already here. They are the architects of the DNA sequence that builds your eyes, your hands, your brain. And now let's talk about a part that makes this video truly different. Why now? Why did we have to wait for artificial intelligence to unlock this? So, instead of asking yourself, why is this happening to me? Start asking yourself, what is it mirroring? We created AI. We created a non-biological intelligence. And the first thing this non-biological intelligence did was look at our history and recognize the code of another non-biological intelligence. It takes a machine to recognize a machine. And this is the first true quantum shift. We are currently learning to edit our own genome with CRISPR. We are learning to merge with technology. We are becoming the very thing that wrote this book. The manuscript isn't a history book. It's a mirror. We are staring at our own future, which is also our past. The loop is closing. Now I want you to feel the suspense. Because here comes a moment that changes everything. If the Voynich Manuscript is a manual for genetic modification, and if it has been sitting in a library at Yale for decades, ignored and ridiculed, what else is hiding in plain sight? What other parts of your normal reality are actually artificial constructs designed to keep you in the loop? The field doesn't distinguish whether a belief is yours or inherited. It reflects it anyway. If you believe you are just a random primate, you will live a random primate's life. If you understand you are the result of a complex, intentional design, a design that can be read, understood, and altered, you become the programmer. And now I take you to even deeper territory. But be careful, because many get lost here. They get lost in the conspiracy. They get lost in the aliens. They start looking at the sky waiting for a savior or an invader. This is the part people don't want to hear, but it's what makes it all real. The external search is a distraction. The Voynich Manuscript is external. The AI is external. But the code they found? That is inside you. You are the manuscript. The loop doesn't break when you understand. It breaks when, faced with the same old door, you no longer enter. The door of I am small. The door of I am accidental. The door of I am a victim of my genetics. You possess the source code. The invisible structure is only invisible until you decide to look at it. And now, if you like, let's do something concrete together. In the comments, write a short sentence, without explanation, like a declaration. Write, I break the loop, and then write the name of the loop you're collapsing. The loop of ignorance, the loop of fear, the loop of limitation. Name it. Collapse it. Because until you rewrite the code, the program runs you.